Since the earliest days of our country, there has been a desire for equality among most Americans. Over the years, many advances have been made to improve equality and personal freedoms in America. Our country is a very diverse country, with people from many ethnic backgrounds and religions. Historically, not all groups were treated equally. It is something that our nation has long struggled to achieve, and there are many passionate voices that continue to speak out in the pursuit of equality and freedom for everyone. Today, we are going to take a look back at some of the difficult struggles for equality that have happened in America, and we will look at some key people who spoke out against inequality. These civil rights leaders led people to take part in movements for change. These movements led to changes in our laws that are intended to ensure that all Americans have a voice in their government, by giving them the ability to vote. Ever since America became independent from Great Britain, Americans have struggled for the freedom to be able to decide how they are going to live their lives. Unfortunately, not all groups have always had equal standing in America. In our history, women, African Americans, Native Americans, immigrants, and other minority groups have had to fight to have their voice be heard, and to have equal rights to vote, to get a good education, to receive the same pay, and to have accessibility to decent housing. One of the most terrible examples of inequality in America was the practice of slavery. From the time of the colonies until the mid-1800s, millions of Africans were enslaved. Slaves were mostly used in the South, which had agriculture as its main economy. The slave labor allowed large plantation owners to have slaves do hard work for no pay. This practice of slavery was one of the issues that led to the Civil War. At the conclusion of the Civil War, the 13th Amendment was passed in 1865, freeing all slaves in every state. In 1868, the 14th Amendment was adopted, and all black people living in America became citizens. In 1870, black men were given the right to vote, with the passing of the 15th Amendment. Although these were all very important changes, the fight for true equality for African Americans was only beginning. Hi Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to talk more about the struggle for equality in America.
Great. I'll catch up with you all later.
The First Amendment to the Constitution set up some of our most important rights as Americans. Not only does it protect freedom of religion, it also gives freedom to the press to report on what the government is doing, and it gives everyone living in America the right to free speech, and the right to gather together with other people to peacefully speak out for change, and ultimately to petition the government to change laws that are unfair. In our history, many Americans have used these rights to lead changes to our laws. We will be taking a look at two key examples of civil rights leaders in America, Susan B. Anthony and Martin Luther King Jr. Susan B. Anthony was born in 1820. Over the course of her life, she was a very influential person in the fight for civil rights. She was outspoken about the need to end slavery, she worked hard to get women equal treatment in the workplace, and she was a strong voice for giving women the right to vote. She gave many speeches and led protests to call for equal rights for women. She died in 1906, 14 years before the 19th Amendment passed, giving women the right to vote in 1920. Because of her leadership in the civil rights movement, a new $1 coin was created in 1979 to honor her leadership in the fight for equality. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a reverend who was from Atlanta, Georgia. Dr. King fought hard for the equal rights of all Americans. He believed that nonviolent protests were the key to seeing changes in our laws. During the 1950s and 1960s, segregation, discriminatory laws, and unfair practices meant that many African Americans did not have equal access to good housing, good education, or the ability to vote in elections. Dr. King led thousands of people in peaceful protests to demand changes. This movement resulted in the passing of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act in 1965. Dr. King's leadership led to him receiving the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964, when he was just 35 years old. Tragically, Dr. King was murdered in April of 1968. But his dream for America being a place where people of all ethnicities live together equally, still leads us all to keep working towards true equality for everyone. We honor Dr. King every year in January on Martin Luther King Day, a national holiday created to honor his life and his achievements for civil rights.
Hi Sarah. Welcome back. Is it time to go over the civics test questions from this lesson on equality and freedom?
Yes, it is. Let's go ahead and get started with the review. In this lesson on equality and freedom, we covered information that is found in 8 civics test questions. What did Susan B. Anthony do? Fought for women's rights. Fought for civil rights. There are 4 amendments to the Constitution about who can vote. Describe one of them. Citizens 18 and older can vote. You don't have to pay a poll tax to vote. Any citizen can vote. Women and men can vote. A male citizen of any race can vote. What is one right or freedom from the First Amendment? Speech, religion, assembly, press, petition the government. What group of people was taken to America and sold as slaves? Africans. People from Africa. Name one problem that led to the Civil War. Slavery, economic reasons, states' rights. What movement tried to end racial discrimination? Civil rights movement. What did Martin Luther King Jr. do? Fought for civil rights, worked for equality for all Americans. That's all of the civics test questions for this unit. Remember, you can always review the civics test questions by using the flashcards in the app. Thanks for taking part in today's lesson. We hope to see you for a future lesson.